Hello, He fans. This one goes out to a very special Patreon tribe member. This is dedicated to Luke Wiltshire, who is an OG of the Patreon tribe. Been there since the very, very beginning. And he asked if I could do a video on He-Man. So this particular video is going to be a hands-on playing around with a vintage 1982 He-Man figure. For quite some time I had a commemorative He-Man figure. He's back there somewhere, and I'll compare him with this one in a little bit. But I did decide to pick up an actual vintage He-Man figure because the heads are a little bit different. Usually I prefer the reissue over the original if it's pretty much an exact same copy, but the difference between the heads is quite different because the reissues, the Mattel commemoratives that they did, they didn't have the original molds. They actually they created a new cast out of an original head, and quite a bit of detail was lost. So I ended up finding this one dirt cheap. The accessories, though, are from the commemorative He-Man, so I won't be able to show off what the original accessories look like or compare with the original accessories. But this is an original He-Man. Let's take a look at what the date is on here. It says 1981 on there. So when I look online, Masters of the Universe, the date that's given for when this toy line was released is 1982. So I think in Mattel's case, they put the date on when this went into production and maybe was made, and then it just sometimes takes a couple months to get it all packaged, shipped out, and onto store shelves. Not the case with some Hasbro toys. This is my original cup, which recently did a video on. He came out in 86. I know I got him in 86. And his little copyright information right here says 1986. So because this guy didn't include any accessories, picked him up for, I believe it was about $5 Canadian, which is pretty amazing considering what shape he's in. The paint on the legs is fantastic. I haven't done any paint touch-ups here at all, and this looks like a toy that was actually not played with all that much. Some years back, before I started the channel, I did have another vintage He-Man, but he had like some really nasty rubber residue all around his legs, some other paint issues, so I ended up getting rid of him. But this one is in a lot nicer condition. It's kind of got the nice new figure gloss on him too. The major damage to this figure is, like a lot of toys back in the day, they got chewed on. And a lot of the time it was maybe by a little brother or a dog. So his pinky is barely holding on here. His thumb looks like it's been mangled a little bit. This hand has been particularly chewed as well, but it's good enough to hold the sword still fairly well, especially if you combine He-Man and Skeletor's sword. I don't think there's much I can do about the condition that this is in. A hair dryer and then dipping it into ice water I don't think is going to tighten the grip just because of how this has been chewed, but it works for me, to quote Hunter.
Works for me.
And the battle harness is actually in really nice condition too. Nice paint on that. There's almost no paint wear on this guy, which is pretty astounding for such an old figure. Seems to be an original He-Man. Hard to tell because they reissued him all the time. Came out with the original burst, yellow burst bubble. And it's got a squishy head, which always gives you like a weird, one of those phone app distortion filters on them. Nice paint on there as well. The battle harness is removable. I don't know if I've ever removed this harness. He's in there pretty tight. There we go. And so you can dress He-Man up or undress He-Man to look like he does at the beginning of the Atari Masters of the Universe Power of He-Man game. At the beginning of that game, he transforms into He-Man. So I guess before the Prince Adam figure was released, this could be Adam. I don't know, maybe you could make a custom vest for him. That wouldn't have been too hard. Just a custom vest and then do the transformation into the battle harness. And the really nice thing about vintage He-Man figures is that you could take the arms off, but you know, this guy is so old that I'm not going to risk popping it off like I used to with the old vintage figures, because you just never know what condition the plastic is in. I've had other vintage toys that I used to just very easily pop off parts and pop them on like this, and something weird broke, like the whole on a vintage Masters of the Universe figure, the whole nub just broke right off and there was a giant hole in the shoulder. So that never used to happen. That's why I avoid doing that type of stuff these days now with this if I can. So He-Man came with his half of the Power Sword. And like I said, this is a reissue Power Sword because I don't have an original. But if you do end up getting yourself some vintage Masters figures, definitely try to pick them up missing parts, because the missing parts, you can get reproduction parts. Sometimes they can actually be a little bit pricey, unfortunately, but sometimes you can also get some pretty decent quality and get a good deal on it as well. Like the Barbarossa custom parts, which I've shown on the channel, are just amazing. Beautiful reproduction parts of the originals. You can barely tell that they're reproduction. So the original Power Sword had this little brace on the side here, which is kind of, it's smart. It's kind of a finger guard, a knuckle guard, so that during a sword fight, I kind of wonder why real swords, I guess some real swords do have that, but if a strike is coming in, if it comes in low, that would save the fingers from being chopped off. But what that would usually get used for is just turning it to the side like that so that he can actually hold it without dropping the sword. So even with this spring action, which is incredible, like the spring in this is still super strong. That'll keep it in his hand. The problem with the He-Man half of the sword is that when you do it like that, the inside of the sword is exposed. There's no way to... I mean, Skeletor's is the proper way right there. It's in there secure, and you get to actually see the detail of the sword. The other issue is you can combine the two, and you would think that these would fit securely. I think the originals did fit a little better than this commemorative one does. This little ridge right here goes into this hole, and then there's a peg on either side that plugs into the holes, and then tinier little pegs right there that plug into there. This has never fit properly, and I've tried to tighten it with some clear nail polish, and it won't hold. The end always comes apart. Doing it that way, it makes the finger guard really a little trickier to fit both of them over the finger. That way now you get to actually see the sword detail, but the problem is it's the purple Skeletor sword. It should be the gray one, so if they were inverted, that would be a lot better. And I believe the battle armor, He-Man and Skeletor, they inverted which one has the ridge and which one has the holes. So that one would actually go better if you want to have it in his hand securely. Otherwise, I've always just kind of done it like that so I can see both halves of the Power Sword. It also includes the shield. This is not like the original one at all. I vividly remember the original one having paper in it. Orange paper, which was an interesting choice for a shield. I guess this makes more sense as a plaything, so that you don't have paper getting nicked and damaged during battle. So they changed that up, but it functions the same way. There's a clip part that hooks onto the wrist, and then to make it even more secure, there's this part that the fingers feed through that pinky, and that goes on there really secure too. Can parry attacks. And then he also included a battle axe. And going through my box of old parts, I was actually able to find my original He-Man battle axe. I don't know why this survived all the years. It's pretty gungy. Haven't cleaned it or anything, and there's some cut damage on the bottom for some reason. But I can actually compare an original axe with the commemorative axe, and it's pretty much exactly the same. Even the ridge detail in the handle is almost exactly the same. To my eye, I don't see any detail loss whatsoever between the two. So the commemorative weapons, nothing wrong with them at all. This hand is too mangled to hold the axe. Possibly the top part, since that's a little bit thicker. That could work, but I've always stored the axe in the back of his harness. It's always how I've done it. Just feed that back into there. I've always loved the look. And I've done that with the classics He-Man figures too. The Origins. I just like the axe there on his back. Pop the sword in there. And I'll grab the commemorative He-Man figure to show you the differences between the two. And there's quite a few actually once you get them side by side. This guy will not stand properly. His legs, even though he's the newer one, his legs just want to splay out to the side. The harness is almost exactly the same. Like there's just the slightest different shade of red paint on there, but it's the same harness. It attaches the same way too. Big color difference in the boots and the shorts actually. On camera it's pretty similar, but to the eye this is definitely like a darker, more brown color, and then this actually is being represented pretty faithfully on camera. The orange in the belt, this is more of a red orange on the original He-Man, and the commemorative one is more of a light orange, a yellowy orange. The skin tone on the commemorative one is a little bit darker too. He looks just a little more tanned than the most tanned man in the universe. And then the biggest difference is the head. This is a deal breaker for some He-Man fans. The detail is definitely softer, less intense. Maybe that's what you want in a He-Man figure, actually, one that doesn't look all scary and intense, but definitely doesn't have as much nostalgia as this one does, because this head was also used for Battle Armor He-Man and all the other versions of He-Man. And to finish up, a couple of comparisons with some other versions of vintage He-Man from the original toy line. The second version of He-Man, the Battle Armor one, which, will it work? No, my spring is all, oh, it actually works. Wow. I haven't been able to do that for a long time, and it takes a lot longer usually than it just did. But there's the Battle Armor He-Man. Colors are almost exact match, skin tones and paints. There's the Battle Armor, and then the second version of He-Man, which was, oh man, I love this one so much. Thunder Punch He-Man. When all those toys used to have cap firing action, and that one was a much different He-Man. Big, bulky body to him, and then I love the extra little white paint detail on the boots. Just a bigger, more powerful looking He-Man. And then the final version, which I never picked up back then. I just, I don't know, I passed on Flying Fists He-Man. Picked him up a few years ago also for a great deal. I think it was I don't know, $10 or something. I don't really remember how much I paid for everything, but I do know it was just pocket change because he had no accessories, but he's in incredible shape. I've passed on a lot of these guys because if a figure has chrome on it, then if I'm going to buy it, I would like the chrome to just be almost perfect. And this one just looks fantastic. So with no accessories, I've given him a Classics Gold He-Man sword. I thought that looked nice with the gold armor right there. And again, a very different looking He-Man from the original one. Cool to have different versions of the big guy, but nothing, much like Optimus Prime, nothing will ever beat the original version of the most powerful man in the universe. Oh, and there's one more version I almost forgot, which is not actually a He-Man figure, but it's pretty much He-Man. It's Prince Adam, and same head again. Same skin tone, pretty much. I always wish that Adam was a little more pale than the He-Man figure, since on the show, when he transforms, he gets a big tan. But I think we're just lucky we ever even got a Prince Adam figure back in the day. I remember being very surprised they made him, because I figured they probably just want you to customize a vest with your He-Man figure and just pretend that's your Prince Adam. And I think I might have just come up with a way to keep this sword together. There's this extra lightning effect piece that came with Battle Armor Origins He-Man. I don't know if he's going to actually hold on to this, though. Yeah, that's, in theory, seems like a cool idea, but that hand is, unless, there we go. If I put the finger guard over top of there, that actually works great. So that is such a cool effect, and that's what I love about Origins figures, that they're so compatible with the vintage figures. It's not just about taking a Origins figure and sneaking him in to your vintage collection, like old Scareglow there. It's really hard to tell that that's not a vintage Scareglow right there. But you can also take some of the accessories and pieces, and that's a little bit of unfinished business right there, an actual lightning effect for He-Man as he transforms in front of Castle Grayskull. I like how that looks. So thanks again, Luke, for all your support over the years, and thank you to everyone who has joined Patreon. Appreciate you guys and gals so much. And also thank you to all the channel members who have hit the join button. Thanks for taking the time to watch this video. Feel free to share it. Feel free to leave a comment below. And to join the tribe, hit subscribe.
By the power of Nerdmas Day!